Good afternoon. Hello, hello. This Facebook Live is impromptu, but people have been asking for some assistance on the Illinois Supreme Court race and the two candidates in the second district and the third district that have been endorsed by the RestoreIL.org coalition, grassroots coalition, of which Awake Illinois is part of. And we've had people doing door knocking and canvassing. Maybe you have seen these pieces when you've been talking to people who knock on your door and tell you that they have some candidate information for common sense candidates that will restore Illinois. So I wanted to just cover some of the background on the Illinois Supreme Court, and you can maybe share it with your networks, with your communities, and maybe it'll give you a little bit more insight. So, arguably, the Supreme Court race with these two candidates is the most important election on your ballot for November 8th. And I'm going to go through a little bit of why that is and give you some background on the structure of the districts for these two candidates, and also basically what the Supreme Court of Illinois does. So there are three branches to government here in Illinois. You have the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. So the structure of the Illinois court system, the Supreme Court is the highest court in the state. Many of you may already know that. And then underneath them is the appellate court, and then below that is the circuit court. And so cases that are normally channeled to the Supreme Court are from the appellate court. But in certain cases where a circuit court has imposed a death sentence, the law allows direct appeal to the Supreme Court, bypassing the appellate court. But the trajectory is such that it's circuit, appellate, and Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court is comprised of 7 justices. 3 represent the first appellate judicial district of Cook County, and then 1 each represents the remaining 4 appellate judicial districts. A majority of 4 is required to decide a case. So I wanted to just show you let me get out of here. So this is the RestoreIL.org website. This shows the common sense candidates, starting with Mike Burke and Mark Curran. I'll come back to them in a minute. But I want to show you the new judicial map. So this looks a little different from maybe what you recognize from the past. The Illinois legislature did redistrict. So there you have Cook County is number 1. They automatically get 3 Supreme Court justices. So the second one is McHenry, Lake, Kane, Kendall, and DeKalb. So that is going to be Mark Curran for District 2, the second district of the Supreme Court. And then you have the third district in pink: DuPage, Will, Kankakee, Iroquois, Grundy, LaSalle, and Bureau. And that is where sitting Justice Mike Burke, an incumbent Supreme Court justice, is running in the third district. So just wanted to give you a little bit of background on what those districts look like. Maybe you're in them or know people in them and you can inform them. The reason why it is so important is because the Supreme Court candidates who are elected serve 10-year terms. Those are big terms. And in Illinois, there hasn't been a Republican majority on the Supreme Court since 1964. And we are in a 2-party system in Illinois. And it's currently 4 Democrats to 3 Republicans. And some people might say, well, what's the big deal? Well, when a case gets brought through the court system to the highest court of Illinois, that is going to be a big determination as to, number 1, what cases get appealed. The chances are going to be firm or not as to what the outcome could be. And based on what you've seen lately, perhaps you've been paying attention to the Supreme Court ruling that came down for the Tom DeVore case. So that started in the Circuit Court of Sangamon County, went up to the appellate, and then ended in the Supreme Court. And the word moot became big. Many memes were made out of it. But it's important to recognize that that was a pretty big deal. And when you go to, I think I have it up here. When you go to high-profile cases of the Illinois Supreme Court, take a look at the high-profile case that's listed here. There it is. Julianne Austin, et cetera, et al. Respondents versus the Board of Education, J. Robert Pritzker, et al. Petitioners. So this was the unprecedented Tom DeVore case where parents took it to court. And they said, these mandates are unlawful. You can't force masks and quarantines on my healthy child without a court order. And it went right up to the Supreme Court. And Justice Mike Burke actually had a dissenting opinion on that, which when you look at it, it's very interesting. I think I have that in here, actually. I can probably click on it. Written dissent. Oh, I don't think you guys can see that. But at any rate, it's there. I can share this later. No, let me get it on here. I think it's worth you guys seeing this. Hold on. He actually questions, rightfully. Let me see if I can get it up here for you. Yep. He rightfully questions the executive orders by Pritzker. It's probably too small for you guys to see it. Let me go back. Here, he says, the TRO can be read as applying to the validity and enforceability of the governor's executive orders themselves. And this is an important issue that should be resolved by this court. And that was filed in February. It's interesting because after everything that's happened these last 2 years, the Supreme Court has an opportunity to determine the lawfulness, the validity and enforceability, as Justice Burke said, of the governor's executive order themselves. How many executive orders has he done? We had 34 now over the last 2 years. So in terms of what the Supreme Court does, the cases that are brought forth, this is very important. It's a 10-year investment. And there are many different states around the country that are looking at the Supreme Court of Illinois race, among many other Supreme Court races. But this is a big one because it hasn't happened in a long time where there's been a Republican majority. It's been since 1964. So think about the impact that does have on court cases, particularly this one, which was very high profile. So I want to go back to another one. So the Supreme Court appoints the appellate court judges. And I thought that this was interesting. When you go back to the appellate court high profile cases, the first one that's there is People of the State of Illinois versus Jussie Smollett. You guys remember that one, right? The hoax, the MAGA hat hoax with the actor. And so that is the high profile appellate court case. So you guys can just click on these if you want to go through and take a look. But the Supreme Court of Illinois, please pay attention to it. Share with your networks why it's important. The 10-year investment, they are the ones who appoint the appellate court judges. And I want to go through and show you some background on the gentlemen who are running right now. So we have Justice Mike Burke. He's a vote for common sense and for safe communities. And so when you go through and take a look at his background, you can go to his website. But this is one of the pieces that grassroots coalition groups have been sharing in their communities when they door knock. The Illinois Supreme Court is the most important election of the year. With rising crime and officials abusing their power, how we vote determines if we have a court which is, quote, business as usual, or one which stands for the rights of Illinois citizens. Justice Mike Burke is endorsed by law enforcement, helped Illinois stand up to Pritzker's mandates, a former prosecutor with 30 years of judicial experience, and highly recommended by the Illinois Bar Association. At the bottom, it shows Justice Burke's opponent, Mary Kay O'Brien, has not been endorsed by any law enforcement organization and is not highly recommended by the Illinois Bar Association. She was, however, endorsed by organizations, unions, and state officials who have fought to keep kids masked, schools shut, and who support radical restrictions to law enforcement. She also has been heavily supported by Mike Madigan during her elected career. And again, Mike Burke is the 3rd district. Let's go down to Mr. Mark Curran for Illinois Supreme Court, 2nd district. People want the security of law and order, and they want to see our state get better. They want Illinois to be a place where they can be proud of again. I'll do my part to dutifully uphold the Constitution and make the judicial branch of our state government one that's fair and corruption-free. That's a quote from Mark Curran. He is a former prosecutor with over 30 years of legal experience. He served 12 years as the sheriff of Lake County. He stands for upholding the Constitution, protecting liberty, and restoring freedom. He stands for law and order. He stands against abuse of power. And at the bottom of this piece here, let me see if you guys can see it. I can zoom in maybe more. Mark Curran's opponent, Elizabeth Rockford, next to Governor Pritzker in this picture, is supported by organizations, unions, and state officials who have fought to keep kids masked, schools shut, and who support radical restrictions to law enforcement. She is the choice of the Illinois political machine. So we know where the machine has gotten us, and people have to vote better. So that's just a little bit of background on the Illinois Supreme Court race. Share this with your contacts. A lot of people, unfortunately, are not paying attention to this very important part of your ballot. So take a look at these 2 candidates, Justice Mike Burke for the 3rd district and Mark Curran for the 2nd district. The Illinois Supreme Court has not been Republican since 1964. This is the year to change that, if voters are so willing to elect common sense. So hopefully this helps people. There are some resources that you can use at the restoreil.org coalition website. And I will be putting some of the things that I showed you today with links at the blog there. But take a look, and hope everybody is staying warm and cozy on this blustery fall day. Contact us anytime if you have any questions.